Hello? No. Hello? Yeah? Erev Tov Kulam. Welcome everyone here in Yerushalayim Yer HaKodesh and around the world. We have a number of announcements we'll make now and we'll make again at the end of the shiur because people come in late. Okay, first of all, we have 2 new music discs from the Rav that you'll be able to, those here, will be able to get at the back table here. One is called Yud Gimel Nigunei Rachamim. This one, brand new. And a second one called Bokeach Chalonei Rakia, where it is Reb David Raphael Ben Ami Feinchil sings Rabbi Ginsburgh's melodies. Many of you have been to different Farbrengens, have seen this holy Chassid, and the Rav loves when he sings in general, especially his nigunim. So here's a whole CD of him singing the Rav's nigunim. I assume it will be on the website for purchase, and those who are here can also buy. Second announcement, since this is broadcast all over the world, if anyone is listening from Barcelona, and if anyone is planning to be in Barcelona next Sunday, the Rav will be teaching in Barcelona. For further details, you have to go to the Galei Nai Facebook page, inner.org. Banglit. It will be in English. You can buy your kartisim right now to fly to Barcelona next Sunday. 2 more announcements that after a few weeks, a few classes of the Rav not taking questions, the problem is that the Rav's schedule is extremely tight. So starting tonight, we have a new order here, is that we're going to take a few questions from Chutz La'aretz after the shiur. So those of you who are listening and want to send in your questions, but like every week, we could not get to all of the questions. But if you want to send those same questions to the Galei Nai website, the Rav makes every attempt to answer every single question. So sometimes scores of people send in questions and we can only pick a few. For the Kahal here, the Rav has requested he's not going to take any questions here, but after Ma'ariv, when the Rav is walking down to the front of the Beit Knesset to get his ride home, he said he would be happy if people want to ask brief questions and he can answer them on one foot. So those of you here, if you want to, after Ma'ariv, take the opportunity to ask the Rav what you can. And also, if you can't, you can always go to the website and ask your questions, and the Rav will make every attempt to answer them. For those that know, I'm trying to think of the name. The Rav has a whole book on, what's it called? What again? Yeah, A Sense of the Supernatural. The entire book is taken from questions that were submitted to him by email about parapsychological experiences. So people are welcome to do that. One more announcement for everyone here and those in Chutz La'aretz who might possibly hear. Every year, maybe the biggest teaching event of the year is for Yud Tet B'Kislev that happens at Binyanei Ha'umah every year. This year it's not actually on Yud Tet B'Kislev, it's Yud Zayin B'Kislev. It's on a Sunday night. And the men are Sunday night, and the women are Monday. Wednesday. It's now Wednesday. Okay. Or maybe it was always Wednesday. It's on Wednesday. The men are Sunday night, I believe at 8:15. And it's really the biggest gathering of the year. So everyone here...
What language?
Hebrew. It's in Hebrew. Everyone is invited. There is a lot of music and singing and dancing and teaching. And at the same time is this awesome book fair. If anyone hasn't been there, it's the most amazing thing. It's like going into a grocery store where you have grocery carts. I'm not exaggerating. People, the prices are very, very, very good. There's literally thousands of books there on sale. And people are walking around with shopping carts full of Sfarim that they wait the whole year. It's really an amazing book sale. It's happening at the same evening, and it goes to very, very late at night. One last announcement is for this Yud Tet B'Kislev event, so there are a lot of expenses. There are a lot of expenses to make this event happen every year. Without detailing them, but it costs quite a bit of money. So Gali Nai is offering the following thing. Anyone who will... I'm standing up as a Rav just walked in. Okay, so I'll finish the announcement. Is to help cover the costs of this very, very, very big and important event. Anyone who contributes 770 shekels, I'll leave it to you to figure out why they picked that number. 770 shekels. The Rav is going to do a special Malava Malka only for those people who help make this Yud Tet B'Kislev event. And if, for a couple, that's for an individual. For a couple, and you can ponder this for the next couple hours, 1,026 shekels, a zug, a couple is invited to this special Malava Malka. Details will follow when and where, etc. But everyone is, even from Chutzlars, you don't have to come to the Malava Malka to help make this event happen. It will be live streamed, as it is every year, hours and hours and hours of tremendous music and dancing and teaching. So people are invited. It's almost Hanukkah. It's time for Hanukkah Gelt. Hopefully people will open up their hearts and their pockets, and then it will be a great Malava Malka.
Good afternoon to everyone. Good morning in America. For the last several times we've been talking about emes, truth. First we discussed it from a philosophical point of view. Then beginning last time we began discussing it purely from a Torah perspective. At the end of last month's class, we actually read a whole portion from the Gemara that discusses and describes three great souls that had the power to make the sun stand still. And they were Moses and Joshua and Nakdimon ben Gurion. a much less known figure. The story of Joshua is explicit in the book of Joshua. There's an implication that implies that also his mentor, Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu, if the disciple had the power to make the sun stand still, so certainly the Rebbe had the same power. So actually, the sages teach us that Moses also made the sun stand still. And the final, most amazing story is the story at the end of the Second Temple, that a certain Jew was a very wealthy Jew. He provided water for all of the thousands and tens of thousands of people that came to the temple to celebrate the festival. And he had to purchase the water from a Roman governor. And he made a stipulation with the governor that if he returns the water by a certain date, then okay, and if not, he'll have to pay an enormous sum of money. And the date came and there was no rain to fill the basins of that particular governor's basins. And the day came and he was about to have to pay this enormous amount of money. And he went into the Beis HaMikdash and he prayed there. And Hashem made a miracle that after drought for a long, long period of time, all of a sudden the heavens opened up and there was a flood of waters. But when he came out of the Beis HaMikdash, it appeared that it was already night, means that the day had already passed. And if the day had already passed, so he still owed that Roman official the money. So he went once more into the Beis HaMikdash, and he prayed to Hashem, and he asked God that show that you have lovers in the world. I mean, there's a people that love you and that you love the people. And so he came out of the temple, and once more it was already night. But since it was raining the whole time, the skies were cloudy. And the clouds separated, split, and the sun came out, thereby showing that it was still day, even though on the clock, on the watch, was already night. So in that way, he was released from his obligation to pay. But it was a tremendous Kiddush Hashem, sanctification of Hashem's name, that God made the sun stand still in the heavens and still remain there into the night, in order to show the world that God has a people, and God has a temple, and God has tzaddikim, righteous souls, that He listens to their requests. So what's more, his name is Nakdimon ben Gurion. And then we made a calculation, a gematria, that the names of these three people that the Gemara says have this ability, this miraculous power to make the sun stand still. Their names added up together equals 3 times the word emes, truth. Truth, 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 meaning that the average value of each one of these names is truth. And from here we came to stipulate or to think that maybe there must be some relationship between truth and the ability to make the sun stand still. And then for the first time, these classes have been going on for 2 years, I think, almost, right? And for the first time, usually at the end of the class we take some questions, but this time instead of questions, I asked everyone here and everyone listening abroad, if anybody has an idea, a thought, what could be the relationship between truth, emes, and the sun's standing still? So I was very, very pleasantly surprised that many people responded to this, much more even than the questions. Meaning that to present your own thought is much better than asking a question even. Everyone has the power to be mechadish, to innovate in the Torah. We're taught in Tanya that every soul descends into this world and it must innovate all of the innovations that it can possibly possess potentially in the soul in order to complete its tikkun, its rectification. So it's a very, very, once more I was very, very happy that so many people responded to this request, and the thoughts that they expressed were varied. There was a whole array of thoughts that we're not going to try to summarize, and very interesting and deep insights that people have all over. So this is also an invitation, weiter, further, that better than even asking a question is saying a chidush, saying some original thought of yours in regard to the material that we're discussing. So since there are so many different thoughts that were expressed, and also very good thoughts, so as we like to do, we take different hues, colors, and try to create a rainbow out of them. And that rainbow, we call it a partsuf, a persona, that has all of the different colors of the different sfirot, the different powers of the soul to it. Also that everyone's chidush is coming from his particular hue. So what we'll do now, in the first part of the talk today, is to present these different thoughts. First, we'll go through the attributes of the heart, the emotions of the heart, of which there are 7, as we know. Chesed, which loving kindness and love. Gurion, might, which means fear in the soul. Then comes beauty, which means compassion in the soul. Then comes victory, and then acknowledgement or glory. And then comes foundation, which actually, the inner property of the foundation, the 6 of the 7 emotive attributes, is called emes itself, which in the sense or referring to Yesod, the foundation, means fulfillment, the power to fulfill oneself. It's one of the meanings of emes in the Torah, the power to realize one's potential and to fulfill one's mission in life. That's the inner property of Yesod, a foundation. And then the last one of the 7 is lowliness, which is Malchus, kingdom. So we begin with Chesed, with loving kindness, corresponding to the first of our forefathers, Abraham, the first Jew, the archetypal soul of loving kindness. So several people said that the common denominator of all these 3 tzaddikim, these 3 great souls that had the power to make the sun stand still, is that they were dedicated, and what they did was purely for the sake of saving the Jewish people, for the sake of the Jewish people. Meaning that they were given over totally to the cause, to the one single cause of helping and saving the Jewish people. And that is, and if the people didn't actually say it, well, now I'll explain why, but that is related to truth, means that their loving kindness was true loving kindness. And such a person, that is totally given over to his people for the sake of heaven, he possesses the power to even stop nature, or to go above and beyond nature, which expresses itself here as being the power to have the sun stand still. So actually it's very significant that the very first time that the word emes appears in the Torah, truth, I might expect that truth should appear at the very beginning of the Torah. It actually does, but just as an allusion. Because the first three words of the Torah, Breshit bara Elokim, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, Breshit bara Elokim, the final letter spelled truth. And actually, final letter spelling the word truth appears 6 times in the story of creation. I mean, there's a lot of truth in the story of creation, but it's not explicit, it's just implicit, in a hint, an allusion. Whereas the first explicit time in the Torah that the word emes appears. So whoever follows the Torah reading every Shabbos, yesterday was Shabbos, and the Torah reading was Chayei Sarah, the life of Sarah. And there is the story of the Shidduch, the match made between Yitzchak, the second father, Isaac, and Rebekah. And the Shadchan, the one that the matchmaker was actually sent by Abraham, and his name is Eliezer, the servant of Abraham. And he, for some very deep reason, is the first person, the first soul in Torah to say the word emes. The first time it appears in the Torah. Actually, he says it 3 times. And he says it in the context, or together with, it's an idiom, together with the word chesed, which is loving kindness. He prays to God, whoever remembers the story, that a girl should appear who herself expresses loving kindness, that she's ready to give me to drink, has to do with water, to drink water and to give water to all of the camels. And she is the one that you have shown to be worthy to marry into the house of Abraham, who is the epitome, the pillar of chesed, of kindness, of loving kindness. And then immediately as he concluded his prayer to God, she appeared. And exactly what he asked came about, happened. He prays to God after she tells him also who she is, that she is a direct relative of Abraham. That's exactly what Abraham wanted. And he promised Eliezer that that God who I have taught the world to worship, will send his angel and he will succeed your way. So he says the first time, he says that you, God, have now done with me. He bows down and he says, blessed be the God of Abraham, that you have done with me chesed and emet, kindness and truth. Then afterwards, a few verses later, he tells the whole event over to the father and to the brother of the girl, of Rebekah. And then again he says, actually 2 verses, one after the other, that he uses the word emes. The first verse he says that God has taken me b'derech emet, hinchani b'derech emet. He has taken me a true way, meaning exactly the way that I desired and that Abraham desired for me has succeeded. That's called a true, he has taken me along a true way. Last time we talked about a great tzaddik, Rabbi Ginsburgh, that worked 21 years to integrate and become one with the attribute of truth. When he used to walk down the street, he used to say an expression over and over again, Necheni b'derech emet, take me along the true path, the true way. And there's something about truth that goes together with way, the true way. And where does that come from? That comes from this story of Eliezer that we read yesterday in the Torah. That he tells the story, he said that God has taken me along a true way. And then once more he says to them, if you, now the family, the parents, will agree to this shidduch and give Rebecca to me to take back to Isaac, to marry, then you will have done with me also kindness and truth. So once or three times in Torah it's called a chazoko. It's a stronghold of a concept. So the word truth has not yet appeared in the Torah at all, even once. And the first time it appears, once more, is from the mouth of Eliezer, Eved Abraham, 3 times in the story of the shidduch, the match between Isaac and Rebekah. And also there must be something about making a good, true shidduch that has to do with truth. The most true thing in the world must be a true match. What is a true match? It's really a beshert. It's really a match from heaven. These two souls are really, in essence, one and the same. So in this context, truth appears 3 times. But it's also a tremendous chus, a tremendous merit, that the one that says the word truth is Eliezer. It's just a servant. He actually comes from Canaan. According to the sages, he is Canaan. He is Canaan himself. But he goes through a metamorphosis. He was cursed, and in this story itself, he metamorphosizes from being cursed to being blessed. Bo Baruch Hashem. So also there must be some relationship that truth is a power of metamorphosis. And this soul, Eliezer, who metamorphosizes from being cursed to being blessed, according to the Arizal, that he traces the history, the chain of his Gilgulim, of his reincarnations, so he actually is related to the Mashiach. So he is the first one that says truth. The word chesed had appeared 2 times before in the Torah. The first time also in the mouth of not a righteous person, the mouth of a Lot. Lot that was saved from Sodom and Amorah. And then he says to God, he says, you have done with me chesed, you have done with me kindness. It's the first time that kindness appears in the Torah. The second time is in the mouth of Abraham, that he says to Sarah, to his wife, that you have done kindness to me, that every time we go to a foreign country, and then I'm in danger because you're a beautiful woman, and maybe they'll kill me in order to take you. So do with me kindness and say that you're my sister. That's the second kindness in the Torah. It's more the first kindness in the Torah is a lot expressing the kindness that God did for him by saving his life. The second kindness is the kindness that Abraham says to Sarah, be kind to me and say that you're my sister. That will save my life. Obviously, it will also save our marriage. So it's good for you also. And the third kindness is the kindness of Eliezer and the shidduch. So it's the third kindness, but it's the first truth. And then it appears 3 times. Let's make another beautiful gematria. Since he says the word truth 3 times, and we already made the gematria of 3 times truth, because 3 times truth is Moses, Joshua, and Nakdimon ben Gurion, these 3 souls that made the sun stand still. Now we'll add the 3 times truth to his name Eliezer. which equals 318. Which is a very important gematria itself, because it says that Abraham, when he fought against the kings, the 4 kings, he took with him 318 soldiers. The Torah says explicitly how many soldiers he took with him. And the sages say that all those 318 soldiers were just one person, Eliezer. Because that number of 318 soldiers is the gematria of his name. That's Eliezer himself. That he equals, or he is worth, as it were, all of the army, or he is all of the army of Abraham. The whole Jewish army is Eliezer. So we take that number, which is once more an important explicit number in the Torah, 318, add it to 3 times truth, and we come to a number, and 3 times truth is 1323, 1323. Eliezer is 318. So how much is that together? 1641. 1641 is exactly the value of the word truth, emes, in the number system which is called mispar kidmi, primordial numbering, which means that the value of every letter is the sum of all letters from Aleph, the first letter, to and including that letter. Is one of the most important number systems in Kabbalah. Mispar Kidmi, primordial numbering. Let's calculate it together. Aleph, the first letter of MS, is Aleph, is 1. It's the first letter of the alphabet. But the second letter is Mem. Mem is the 13th letter, it equals 40. What would be, or what is the sum of all letters from Aleph to Mem? So from Aleph to Yud, from 1 to 10 is 55. Then we have to add 20, 30, 40, another 90. So Mem, the letter Mem in Mispar Kidmi is 145. The letter Taf, which is the final letter of the alphabet, in Mispar Kidmi is simply the sum of the whole alphabet. So Tav is the sum of the entire alphabet, which is an important number that everyone should know. How much is the whole Hebrew alphabet together? 1,495. So it's the sum of all of the 22 letters of the alphabet, and it's the primordial value of the final letter, which is Tav. So if we'll now add up those 3 numbers, 1 and 145 and 1495, we'll see that it equals 1,641 exactly, which is 3 times MS plus Eliezer, who says for the first time in the Torah MS, and he repeats it 3 times. Right, all of this was to understand that Chesed and Emes goes together. But the first thought that several people expressed was that the power that these holes have to stop nature, stop the sun means to stop nature, stop the laws of nature, is because of their tremendous self-sacrifice of chesed towards the Jewish people. And that is emes. So actually, it's true. It's a very true and important thought that the total chesed, kindness, is truth. And it has tremendous, miraculous, supernatural power to it. How do I know in the idiom of the sages that chesed and truth go together? Besides the fact that that's the way it appears in the Torah. I'll say one more thing. We know that there are 13 principles of mercy in the Torah. The 6th and the 7th are v'rav chesed ve'emet, great loving kindness and truth. So once more, chesed and emet go together. In the whole Tanakh and the whole Bible, the phrase chesed ve'emet, loving kindness and truth, actually appears 13 times. Very interesting that idiom, chesed ve'emet, loving kindness and truth, equals exactly another idiom, chatan v'kala, groom and bride. Groom and bride is the same as loving kindness and truth, which seems to imply that the groom is the loving kindness and the bride is the truth. One might think the opposite, but that's the order. The idiom in Chazal is chesed shel emet. When you do a true act of loving kindness, the sages refer to that as chesed shel emet, loving kindness of truth, absolutely true. What does that mean? It means that you did an act of goodness, of kindness, without any thought or intention to receive reward, to receive anything in response. That's why chesed she'emet is sometimes referred to as the chesed that one does when one attends a levaya, a funeral, one buries someone that has passed away. One does chesed with his soul without any thought of receiving from him anything in return. So if you do chesed, pure chesed, without any ulterior motivation whatsoever, you're not going to get anything back for it. That's called chesed shel emet. So of course it doesn't just have to be in the context of a funeral. From that we just learn what it means, what the concept means, chesed shel emet. But any chesed that a person does purely just because he loves doing good and he wants to do good because it's good. It could be that he feels good. It's okay if you feel good that you did good. But you're not going to get anything back for it. If you have an ulterior motivation, then it's called a self-interest. It's not really chesed. It's not true. It's certainly not true chesed. True chesed has a tremendous power. Once more, a miraculous, supernatural power to it behind it. The Rambam in Hilchot Tshuva, in the laws of the Tshuva, returning to God, Maimonides, he says that serving God from love, the inner attributes of chesed, of loving kindness, is love. We're commanded in the Torah to serve God with love. You shall love God, your God, with all of your heart, all of your soul, all of your might. He says that serving God with love means oseh ha'emet mipnei shehu emet. That's the quotation, one of the most important quotations of Maimonides. That he does what is true because it is true, for no reason other than the fact that it is true, without any intention whatsoever to receive anything back, not for the world to come, not because he's afraid of punishment. If a person has any ulterior motive in doing mitzvot, in doing good things, that's called serving God from fear. But what does it mean, serving God from love? That you do the truth because it is true. And then he quotes that this is the service of Abraham, who was the pillar of love and loving kindness. That's why he's the first Jew. He's the first Jew, he's the first person in the world to do truth because it is true. And it's one of the most important, the whole book of the Maimonides is one of the most important statements. So here we find a slightly different angle on the same thing. The relationship between chesed and truth. One thing is chesed and emes means that you did the chesed because you don't need anything back. But then to abstract that thought is that serving God in general from love, if you really love someone, then you do what is true because it is true and for no other reason whatsoever. Right, so all of this was thought number one that several people, and I expanded on it a little bit, but this is one thing that several people said, that this is the reason, this is the power that these three souls had to make the sun stand still, because of their devotion and their true loving kindness and identification with the people. Then we'll now go to the second thought. The second thought was from someone who was a Talmidah for decades, that remembers one of our teachings that we've taught many, many times in the past, that the word truth, emes, which is 441, 21 squared, equals another phrase. The phrase is teva sheni. Teva sheni means second nature. Everyone is born with a first nature, and his service of Hashem, is to achieve, to develop, to mature, also a form of metamorphosis, to mature into a second nature. And you might think that the first nature, which is his innate nature, first nature is the way you're born. The way you're born is innate. Your innate nature, that maybe is your true nature. But no, we're taught that the innate nature that a person was born with is his world of tohu. It's a world still of chaos. Just like first Hashem created a world of chaos. And then actually it broke, and there was a tremendous process of rectification and clarification of the vessels, taking sparks out of vessels until a second world, which is a rectified world, which is the true world that God had intended all the time, but He wanted that there should be a first nature that breaks, and then to come to achieve and to realize a second nature. And the truth, that your true self is not your first self. Your true self is your second self, if you merit. If you merit to a rectified second nature, that's your true nature. Right, so this is one of our old teachings. The teva sheni equals truth. Second nature. So based upon this idea, the thought was that all of these three souls, they were able to overcome and mature out or metamorphosize out, transform out of their first nature into a second nature. And if a person is able to do this to himself, to assume his second nature, which is truth, so he has the power also to take the first nature of creation, which is all of the laws of creation are first nature, but there are miracles. The world is here it's not just here for laws of nature. God created the world that it should abide by His will, whether the normal laws of nature, or from time to time, miracles that supersede the laws of nature. So if you were able to mature out of your first nature and assume your second nature, so that gives you the power also to take the world per se, or the laws of nature per se, and bring them to a second nature, which is their true nature, which is to respond to the will of God. And if it's the splitting of the Red Sea, to split, or all of the other supernatural miracles of the Torah. And if the sun has to stand still, for the sake of the victory of the Jewish people, in the case of Moses and Joshua, in the case of Nakdimon ben Gurion, in order to sanctify the name of Hashem and to show the world that there is a beloved people, then that is the second nature of the world. And if you have come to your second nature, you can bring the world to its second nature. So it's a very nice, very beautiful thought. And that thought pertains to Gvura, to might, because the ability to overcome, to mature out of one's first nature and to assume a second nature, which is truth, is might in the soul. How do I know that? It seems it may be almost self-obvious. Nonetheless, nature, we're taught that the very concept of nature is the secret of Hashem's name, of God's name, Elokim. Because Elokim equals Hateva, nature. So there's a first nature, everything has its first nature and has its second nature. Both are Elokim. Elokim is the name of might, of Gevurah. In order to bring Elokim itself to its second nature, a person has the might, has to have, to possess and to apply the might to change himself. Any process of change is might. Change yourself. If these souls were able to change themselves, they can change the world. That's a very simple idea by itself. We want to change the world. So everything that you want to do outside of yourself, first you have to do it to yourself. If you want to change the world or change the government, so first change yourself. All right, so that thought we place now within the context of the Sfirah of Gevurah. It has to do with nature, which itself is Gevurah, and might. The third thought is a very, also all of these are very good, nice thoughts. Is that the common denominator of these three souls, of Moses and Joshua and Nakdimon ben Gurion, that they were all very connected to the Torah. Moses is the giver of the Torah, so he's the most connected to the Torah. Zichru Torah Moshe Avdi, it says, remember, all of us shall remember the Torah of Moses. The Torah is called the Torah of Moses. And another verse says, Torah Tzivadanu Moshe. Actually, the first verse that you teach a child when he begins to speak. Moses commanded us the Torah. So Moses is the Torah. What about Joshua? Joshua's a warrior. He's a king, a leader of the Jewish people. But at the very beginning of the book of Joshua, the first chapter of Joshua, God says to him that all of your success in conquering, inhabiting the land of Israel, all depends on one idea, one thing. That Moses, your mentor, gave the Jewish people the Torah and gave you the Torah. You are the receiver, as we say in Pirkei Avot, in the Ethics of the Fathers. Moses received the Torah from Sinai and he gave it over to Joshua. And now your responsibility or your service is v'hagita bo yomam v'layla. You should delve over the word of the Torah day and night. Never stop speaking and teaching and learning Torah. That is the secret to your success in everything that you do. So Joshua is also very, very connected to Torah. What is the difference between the two? Just like the sages say, that Moses is like the sun and Joshua is like the moon. That Moses gives the Torah, but there's one that picks it up. And he gives it over to Joshua. The one that picks it up reflects it to the whole Jewish people, and it reflects it by delving over it. Sometimes it says that the difference between Moses and Joshua is the difference between thought and speech. Even in making the sun stand still, it doesn't say that Moses said to the sun, stand still. Joshua said to the sun, stand still. How did Moses make the sun stand still? It's the power of thought. So Moses is the power of thought, and Joshua is the power of word relative to one another. In the Torah itself, it's as though the Torah, Moses speaks the Torah to the people. Where is it coming from? In him, it's not because he's saying it, it's because it's coming straight out of his mind. From God to his mind to the world. But Joshua that picks it up, he has to speak it over and over and over again. Never stop speaking the words of the Torah. So once more, both of them are tremendously connected to the Torah. What about Nakdimon? Nakdimon is just a wealthy Jew who's devoted to the Jewish people, but he's not a Talmid Chacham, he's not one of the Sanhedrin. What is his relation to the Torah? His relation to the Torah is he is a supporter of Torah. Before the story of the water that he supplied for the whole Jewish people, water is also an idiom, and this also different people express this, that water is an idiom for the Torah, en mayim et Torah. But literally he gave the people water to drink. What did he have to do with Torah? He was a wealthy man, but he was a supporter of the Sanhedrin. He was not part of those that opposed the Sanhedrin and wanted to fight against the Romans, as we discussed a little bit last time. If the Sanhedrin, just like now, the Sanhedrin is a great yeshiva, needs somebody to support the yeshiva. The Rebbe Rashab, the two Rebbes previous in Chabad, he called the yeshiva of Chabad Tomchei Tmeimim, called it after the supporters. He named it in the merit of the supporters. Those that support the pure that learn the Torah. There's something about a supporter, it's called a siba, a cause, which is greater than the thing that he causes. There's much that a person that supports the Torah has all of the merit, just like the two brothers that we know, Yisachar and Zvulun. Zvulun supports Yisachar to learn Torah, and then they divide equally the learning of the Torah. So it's very clear that Nakdimon is a supporter of the Torah. Actually, the Gemara says that he had another name, that his original name was Boni, Bet Vav Nun Yud, which means a builder. Every day in our prayers, we say, Al Tikrei Banayach El Bonayach, that those that study Torah are sons, but we say, don't read it sons, read it builders. Because they build the world. They construct, they rectify the world with their Torah learning. A person who supports the Torah is also a builder. He had a tremendous affinity to the Beis HaMikdash, which is the building that supports God's presence in the world. We'll talk about this more in the continuation. What's more, he is identified with, has the power of the Torah because he supports the Torah and what we find in this story, that in virtue of all of his life supporting the Torah, at one crucial moment, he devotes himself and provides water for the whole people in the time of the festival. So actually there are three ways to be one with the Torah. That each of these three people is a different way to be one with the Torah. One is the innovator. The other is the sayer over and over of the words of the Torah. And the third is the supporter, the physical, financial supporter of the Torah. And they're all equal. Right, so this was a thought, that all of these three people have to do with the Torah. And it says about the Torah that Hashem, God, when He created the world, He looked in the Torah and He created the world. Yistakel bo'oraito bara alma. Meaning the person that it is one with the Torah has the power, just as God, the Torah is the blueprint of creation. And if you're one with the Torah, you yourself are that architect that possesses the blueprint, and thereby you can control in a certain way nature, because nature cannot do anything against. This is actually the very, very first Sikha talk of the Rebbe that's published. Of the present, or the last Rebbe, the very first of his thoughts is that the world will never object what it says in the Torah. Why? Because the Torah is the blueprint of the world. God looks in the Torah and He creates reality. So if you're one with the Torah, you also have this power. And what does that belong to this thought? That because of these people represent the Torah, these three people, so they have the power to create nature as they see fit. That's Tiferet, because the third Sfirah, Tiferet, is beauty, and compassion is the Sfirah of Torah. It's like Jacob was the pillar of the Torah. We'll go on. One person made an important observation, a note, that nonetheless there appears to be a difference, and we actually just now explained it, a difference between the way that Moses and Joshua made the sun stand still and the way that Nakdimon, the third one, made the sun stand still. That Moses and Joshua made it stand still in a way that the sages express as tzaddik gozer v'HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekayem. The tzaddik decrees and God makes it happen. The tzaddik, a true righteous soul, has the power to decree, to say something will happen, even if it's supernatural, and God will make it happen. But and if that's the way it was, that's the common denominator of Moses and Joshua. Just we explained a moment ago that they did it in a different way. That Moses did it by thought. And Joshua decreed in words, because he like pointed to the sun and the moon and he said, Shemesh begivon dom. Sun in Givon is a town. Over this town of Givon, stop, stand still. V'yareach be'emek hayalon. The sun was here and the moon was there, and he pointed to each one and said, stand still. So that's a decree, that's not a prayer. But Nakdimon, the whole story of Nakdimon is he beseeched, he went into the temple and he beseeched God. It's something else. And so he did it in a different way. So this is a correct observation, and there's a lot, again, very much that we have to try to understand what is this special power that a true tzaddik has to decree, as it were. To decree means to command. And if a true tzaddik commands, God will make it come about. But all of us have the power to pray. Prayer is a mitzvah for everyone. Not all of us have the power to decree. These two ways of action explicitly in Kabbalah correspond to the two sfirot of Netzach and Hod. The power that a tzaddik, a true righteous soul, has to decree that this shall happen, that's called Netzach. What is Netzach? Netzach means victory. When this phenomenon takes place, that a tzaddik decrees and something happens, that God makes it happen, it's called Nitzchuni Banai Nitzchuni. Sometimes it's even against what Hashem thought, which is Hashem's own decree. Becomes a tzaddik and says, no, it shall be so. And then Hashem concedes to the tzaddik. And he makes it happen as the tzaddik decreed. So once more, what is the expression for that phenomenon? It's called nitzchuni banai nitzchuni. My children. It's like a father that takes pride in his children. Sometimes he plays a game with his children, and my kid beat me. So if my kid beat me in the game, the father is very, very happy. And he says, Nitzchuni banai nitzchuni, my children have beat me. But that very profound phenomenon is one of Netzach, which is actually the primary sphira of Moshe Rabbeinu in the Torah. The ability to enter the Beis HaMikdash, much more, we said that Nakdimon has a special affinity to the Beis HaMikdash. In the last years of its existence, before the destruction of the Second Temple, the sages say that Hod, glory, Hod, the next Sphira, Hod either means acknowledgement or it means glory. And there's a reading in the Chazal, based on the verse that we say every morning in our prayers, to you, God, is chesed, gedulah, is greatness and might and tiferet and beauty and netzach, victory and glory. So about each one of the things, it says it refers to something else. And one of the readings of glory, what glory means, Hod, is glory, Hod, Zeh Beis HaMikdash, this is the temple. So anyone has an affinity to go into the temple and to pray to God, that is a Hod. It's an affinity of glory. That this particular soul, Nakdimon ben Gurion, is the soul of Hod, of glory. And once more, was the miracle wrought? Not through decree, but through supplication. Supplication that may you make your name sanctified in the world. And it wasn't to save him from paying the sum of money. Just by the way, Hod also has to do with money. Because Hod is the sphira of money, of economics. Whoever remembers the partsuf of what we call the Torah Academy. So everything that has to do with economics is in Hod. So all rich people have an affinity to Hod, the Sphira of Hod. Which means that they have an affinity to the Beis HaMikdash. That's why ultimately they should also use their money to build the Beis HaMikdash. Hod, the two Sphirot of Netzach Hod, they are called the supporters of the Torah. Because Torah is Tiferet, which is the body, and the two Sphirot of Netzach and Hod are called the two legs. And the legs support, hold up the body. So one is the victory of those tzaddikim who have the power to decree, and the other is those tzaddikim which are now the righteous rich people. It says that Rabbeinu HaKadosh, the last sage of the Mishnah, gave great also glory, kavod is glory to rich people, because the Mashiach will come in virtue of righteous rich people that give their money to the proper cause, the proper purpose. That's the left leg that supports the Torah. All right, so now we have actually done 5. These are all, everything that we're now saying is all thoughts that people said, that people wrote me. And the two next ones also, and even one more. The next thought, which corresponds to Yesod, just as Tiferet is the Chesed is the right arm, Gvura is the left arm, Tiferet is the body, Netzach and Hod are the 2 legs. They always operate together. They don't function by themselves. The 2 hands can function individually, independently. But the 2 legs function always together. Netzach and Hod, to walk. Also, the very concept of standing, of making something stand still as to do with standing, we'll talk about this more, that also is directly connected to the legs, which are these 2, the decree versus the entering the temple to pray, to supplicate. The next one is Yesod. Yesod in the body is the procreative organ. And it is called the small organ that contains all. In that same verse that reads, to you Hashem is Gedulah, greatest, which means Chesed, and Gvura, might, and Tiferet, beauty, and Netzach, victory, and Hod, glory. The next word is Kol, Ki Chol, Bashamayim V'aretz. The next Sfira Yesod is referred to by the word all. What does it mean all? It's a phenomenon which in and of itself is a miracle. It's called Mu'at Machziket Amrubet. It's something small, something finite, that contains infinite, the infinite. That's the secret of procreation, because it says that procreation is the power of infinity. But even physically, it's symbolized by the small that contains the all. Now, how can this apply to truth in making the sun stand still? So the thought is that perhaps what it means, the sun standing still, is that not that there were more hours to the day, which is the simple reading of the Torah and the sages, but that in time itself, tremendous content was placed into a finite border or period of time which otherwise could not contain that amount of content. Why did Joshua decree that the sun stand still? Because he needed time. He needed time to complete the defeat of the enemies. But the answer to that necessity for time, can either be give him more time, or give him some more hours, we'll have the sun stand still, or we'll do the miracle in a reverse fashion that will make him able to accomplish this. If one word for this level, this we're now discussing, it's called accomplishment. Accomplishment is also self-accomplishment. It's like self-fulfillment. That will give him the power to accomplish and to fulfill in a small period of time that which otherwise would take a long time. Actually, we're taught that all self-fulfillment must have this property to it. A person never has enough time to fulfill himself. It's a very important observation. That you never have enough time to realize what you're here for in life. So that seems very frustrating. That nobody will ever have enough time to complete his mission in life. So how can we overcome that frustration, that existential frustration, that we never have enough time? It's only by a miracle. But the miracle doesn't mean necessarily that we're going to give you 1,000 years or 10,000 years to complete, because maybe the 10,000 years is also not enough time. But it's a different type of miracle. It's a miracle that you're able to concentrate and to include in a small amount of time a large amount of content, meaning that time becomes qualitative instead of quantitative. Meaning that making the sun stand still is a qualitative miracle, not a quantitative miracle. That is called arichut yamim, length of life. That length of life can either literally mean living a long life, or the way it's explained throughout Chassidut is that length of life is called arichut yamim, it's called length of days. That length of days means that every day of your life is long. Every day of your life is long means that it's full. It's full. Who is the first one that had long days, which are full days? It's Abraham. Once more, the first Jew. Abraham was old. He came into the days, and it says that each day of his life was full, was infinitely full. That power to fill days supernaturally, that they should contain more than naturally they are able to contain by the laws of nature. That's the secret of Yesod, of a foundation, which is also called Tikkun Abriya. If a person rectifies his brit, his covenant, which is the procreative organ, everything that relates to it, so he acquires this quality of a lot in a little. Right. So this is once more an angle on the miracle of the sun standing still, which is it's already beginning to change it from an objective perspective to a more subjective perspective, which is also a general phenomenon of the two last of the seven sfirot, which are Yesod and Malchut. Malchut, kingdom, is relatively subjective in relation to the higher sfirot. And the transition from objective to subjective is Yesod, the sfirah just above and before. So once more, to be able to accomplish a lot, a real lot, in a small period of time, which appears then that you've had a lot of time. I've done in 12 hours what should take 48 hours, according to one opinion in the Gemara. So that means that the sun stood still for 48 hours. It was just 12 hours on the clock, but you accomplished 48 hours. So once more, this is transition from seeing the miracle as an objective reality to seeing it as a more subjective reality. Nonetheless, you really did accomplish in that small period of time what naturally would take a much, much larger period of time. Now the last one, which is Malchut, the last thought, is even more subjective. Someone wrote to me, I'll not quote what he said. This is a letter that I received from someone. That perhaps the idea of the sun standing still, perhaps it's a metaphor, he said. And what does it mean, a metaphor? It's like saying, when Kennedy spoke, the world stood still. Quote unquote from whoever wrote me this letter. Sometimes there's an experience, a great experience, like instead of Kennedy, we'll say, Melech HaMashiach comes, appears. The Messiah comes and he addresses the people, and everyone feels that the time stands still. Why do you feel the time stands still? Because it's a revelation of this. This is a very beautiful thought, because this is exactly psychologically what happens in the face, in the presence of truth. Truth is so unnatural. This world is a world of deceit. It's not a world of truth. Truth is so unnatural that when something true, I don't know if Kennedy spoke the truth, but when it appears as though truth appears, reveals itself, the nature stops. The world stops. Right? In your soul, the world stops. Because the truth has now come out. So this once more a very, very beautiful thought. This is a thought that has to do with true Malchut. Once more, Kennedy is not necessarily true Malchut, but the person that said it, he thought that the world thought that Kennedy was, for the first time in a long time, some true expression of Malchut. And when true kingdom appears, which is like the kingdom of Messiah appearing and speaking and addressing us, then the world stands still. Now this can be actually any experience, once more. This saying that standing still is experiencing the presence of something which is so fantastic that there's no other way that you can express it but just by saying that everything stops. Okay, so all of these thoughts have truth to them. It's all about truth, and it's all about the relationship between truth and making the world stand still. Making the sun stand still, time stand still. Each one is a different hue, a different color, applying to reflecting a different sphera in the soul. And all of these, they're so beautiful for myself. When I looked at all of these different letters that people wrote, everybody said something else. All right, so now we'll say a few things to complete. What we have to do now, in short, is to complete this parsuf by adding all of these are actually parts of nature, because the 7 emotive powers of the heart all have to do with the 7 days of creation. But there must be also levels that apply to the higher sfirot, which are the mochin, the pure intelligence of wisdom and understanding and knowledge, and even what's above all of them is Keter, is the crown. The word that is used in the Torah for making the sun stand still is the word stand. So this is a key word. When Joshua, and the explicit miracle is in the context of Joshua. And it says there, Vayidom HaShemesh v'Yarech Hamad, the sun became still and the moon stood. And then it continues to say, Vayamod HaShemesh, that the sun also stood. Once more. Both still and stand appear. It's a very short verse. The whole miracle of Joshua is just one verse. It said that the sun stilled and the moon stood, and then it continues and says that the sun stood. One important way that the word stand is used both in Hebrew and the Torah and also in English and other languages is to stand a trial. If a person is presented with a very difficult trial in life and he's able to overcome the trial, that's called to stand. And in Hebrew also, it's the same idiom, la'amod b'nisayon, to stand a trial. But Abraham was tested, was trialed by God 10 times. And he stood all of the trials. And the ultimate one was the last one, the 10th one, which was the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. Was ready and willing to sacrifice his son against all logic and all feeling. At that moment that he took the knife and he was about to sacrifice his son, the world stopped. The heavens opened up. The angel appeared and said, "Don't do it. God doesn't want this. It was just a trial. Just a test." And even if you contemplate the very words that you heard from God, they also were not explicitly to sacrifice him, just to take him up to the mountain. Take him up and take him down. So once more, when Abraham stood the trial, and when anybody from Abraham, it says, Maaseh Avot Shiman Abanim, the workings of the deeds of the fathers are the sign for the children. We have to learn from the fathers. In Tanya, it says that this whole world is a world of trials. And everyone here was created, no matter what your particular mission and individual mission is in life, but every single individual with his individual mission is here to go through trials. That's something intrinsic and essential about this world. And if we go through trials, it means if we succeed in going through the trials, it means that we're always having to stand. To stand means to endure. In Hebrew, amid, something is amid, which means it stands if it's durable. Durability is to stand. Endurance is to stand. There's another word in English which is a very good word because it reflects a thought in Hebrew also, fastness. Fastness in English is not just to run fast, to be swift. Fastness is a stronghold. In Yiddish you say fest, which means strong, resistance. To be fast is to possess resistance. Fastness is sometimes like even a castle, a stronghold of fastness. It's that stronghold that the princess of Rabbi Nachman, the first story, the lost princess, that's where she's at. She's in a fastness. In Hebrew, all of these words are synonyms for, it's called amid, for standing. It all has to do with standing. Standing means to stand strong. What happens when a person is able to stand a trial? All of us are here for this reason. So it says in Chassidut, based on a very explicit verse in the Torah, that is, when a person stands a trial, he transforms, at that moment that he stands a trial, he transforms faith into knowledge. That what he had believed in, it says that all trials are trials of faith, if you really believe. They're different trials. The trial can be a temptation, a seduction, like the trial of Joseph and the wife of Potiphar. That's a seduction. But it says that deep down, all trials, even trials of temptation and seduction, are trials of faith. And if you stand the trial, you transform your faith into actual knowledge. And that is the reason that Hashem makes trials, because a person that doesn't go through trials will never come to true knowledge of God. He can believe in God, but his belief will never become true knowledge. If a person has that merit, that schus, that he stands a trial, and thereby he transforms faith into knowledge, then he becomes able to stop nature. Once more, at the very moment that standing the trial, the whole world stops. Why does the whole world stop? As we said before, when Abraham stood the trial, that moment that he stood the trial, the world stopped. Before we talked about Kennedy speaking and the world stopping. That was just a subjective phenomenon, experience. But when Abraham stood the trial, the world really stopped. What does it mean the world stopped? It means that many times it says that when great tzaddikim do something, but when every Jew and every individual has the ability to be this great tzaddik, all of the heavenly bodies, all of the angels, all come down to look at this astounding phenomenon. It could be a simple Jew, that this simple Jew has done something so astounding. The world stops. So once more, the level of da'at is that we have to, definitely we see it in the last one. The last of the three that made the sun stand still is Nakdimon ben Gurion. For him, it's very clear when we read the story that he did an act of self-dedication, but it was for him a great trial. And his standing at the trial was not giving in, and even though it was already night, going back into the temple and once more beseeching God to sanctify his name against nature. Right, so that explanation that a person that stands a trial has the ability to stop nature, because nature just stops to look at you. This is the most amazing thing that God created in the world. A soul standing a trial. So that's the level of da'at. Above that is another concept of truth and standing. That the word to stand is used as an idiom for eternity. Not just simple durability or endurance, or now there's even a more important word that maybe we'll have classes on this word, sustainability. Now the most important word in the world is sustainability, whoever knows. It's all related, but this world is a world which has a beginning and an end to it. Is there a world that doesn't have a beginning and an end to it? Yes, it's called the world of truth. This world is called the world of deceit, Alma de Shikra. But there's another world, which is called Alma de Kshol, the world of truth. If a person is a true soul, it must be that he's living in the world of truth. Where is the world of truth? It's not in this world. The world of truth is Ima in Kabbalah, is Binah, is the Sphira just above that. If you're in the world of truth, everything stands. Because to stand means to be there forever. That's one of the meanings of stand in the Torah. In the Haggadah, on Pesach, the night of Pesach, we read the Haggadah, the story of the Exodus, and one of the most important phrases is V'hi sha'amdo. V'hi sha'amda. She means the promise of God, or it actually means the divine presence himself that stood for us. Those two words, V'hi sha'amda, equals emes, equals exactly the word emet, 441. The Shekhinah, the divine presence, is always with us. The promise that God promised to take us out of Egypt, that the exodus of Egypt has to do with Ima. It's a mother concept in Kabbalah. That stands with us. The promise, he fulfilled that promise then, and he will continue to fulfill that promise in the future. We read 2 weeks ago in the Haftarah that a woman came to the prophet Elisha. She had nothing. He asked her, "What do you have in your house?" And she said, "I only have this little what do they call it, jug of olive oil." And he said, "Bring vessels, a multitude of vessels from outside, and begin to pour it." And she began to pour it. And it was just a drop of oil. She poured one vessel, another vessel, another vessel. She told her sons, "Bring me another vessel." They borrowed vessels from neighbors. "Bring me another vessel." And the son said, "There are no more vessels, that's it, that's the end." Then the Torah says, what does it say? It says, "Vayamod Hashem," that the oil stood, meaning that so long as there were vessels, the oil was infinite. Just flowed and flowed and flowed without end. But as soon as there were no more vessels, so at that moment it says, "Vayamod Hashem," that the oil stood. So the simple meaning is that it stopped. But Chazal say, what does it mean it stood? That it stood erect, that it is sufficient to keep you alive until the resurrection of the dead. I mean that the oil standing means that it will exist forever. That's reaching the level this woman also experienced or stood a test. And a miracle happened for her through the means, the channel of the prophet Elijah. But the oil that stood means that the oil now is world to come oil. It's no longer this worldly oil. It's oil from another world. It's erect oil. And something which is erect means that it's eternal. Even the human being was created in contrast to animals to stand erect. Why was he created to stand erect? Because he was intended to live forever. Just because of the sin, he also reverted to an animal state. But to be erect is to live eternally. So if a person reaches that level of emes, which is the emes of the world, the alma dikshot, the world of truth, which is binah, so definitely he can make things stand still. Because standing still is not just stopping. Standing still is also entering that phase of eternal existence. So actually he did a favor to the sun. He brought, by making the sun stand still, he eternalized the sun. Because he was at that level of eternity, of Im. Now we'll go to wisdom. Wisdom is closely related to understanding because they're the father and the mother principles. Wisdom has to do with light. We have not yet spoken about the relationship between truth and light, but there's one very important verse in Psalms 43, that reads, Shlach orcha v'amitecha hema yanchuni. Before we said that the first appearance of truth in Eliezer is that one of the three verses that he says that you've taken me the true way. You've led me along the true path. So a closely related idiom is that we ask God, send us your light and your truth, they shall lead me. And that I have two things that lead me in life. Shlach orcha v'amitecha hema yanchuni. Send me your light and your truth, they shall lead me. And everybody has to have in front of him light and truth, your light and your truth to lead me. So Rashi on that verse has a very amazing commentary. The most important commentary on the Bible is Rashi. And he says that Orcha, your light, means the Mashiach. Because once more the verse reads, send me, send me. Who do you send? You send someone. So when it says send me your light, it means send me Mashiach, and send me your truth means send me Elijah the prophet, who ushers in and also follows up the coming of the Mashiach. There's two partners in redemption. And one is called your light, and the other is called your truth, and they go together. It means that light and truth appear together, and they represent redemption. Now, light is always a synonym for wisdom throughout the Tanakh. Emet, truth, also, even the very simple meaning of the word truth. Where would I place the word truth? In wisdom. Because the beginning, as we said last time in our last class, the beginning of the manifestation of truth is wisdom. And it descends from wisdom down all the way down to Malchut. This is also a thought that someone wrote. He said that maybe the meaning of having the sun stand still is, in a certain way, relates to Einstein's theory of relativity. He didn't say more than that, but what he might have meant, he probably meant, and this is also something that we've discussed many times, that according to relativity, if you travel at the speed of light, time stops. If you yourself are identified with light, before we said that these three souls are all identified with Torah, the Torah is called light. If a person is one with light, he's all light. To be all light, according to Rashi, means all of one's thoughts, all surrounds, like the Rebbe taught us. Stop thinking about anything else. Stop talking about anything else. Just think about Mashiach and talk about Mashiach. Mashiach is called light. So if a person is all light, he's at the speed of light, and then, according to Einstein, time stands still. The sun stands still. Right, so that's a thought at the level of it has to do with wisdom. It means that these three souls became a phenomena of light. And truth and light, just like before we said that chesed, loving kindness, and truth go together. So in this verse that we quoted, also light and truth go together. Loving kindness and truth are at the level of chesed, which is just below wisdom in the tree of life. And above that is wisdom, which now we're saying that at the level of wisdom, light and truth are one. And light is above time, physically. What could be one more? Keter itself. So the one more, even though we thought that this is going to be the last session on truth, but I see in virtue, thank you all of those people that created this class, which is everybody that wrote the letters. So in the virtue of all those people in this class that we now had, so what we intended for this class, we'll have to leave it for the next class or maybe the next few classes. But just say now what is the level of the crown. And this itself deserves a whole class to it by itself. And this actually goes back to the way we began talking about truth, and we began talking about philosophy. This has to do also with Hanukkah that's coming up, because Hanukkah is the festival of defeating Hellenism, negative Hellenism, which is our battle against Greek philosophy. But especially now, it's not just defeating it; it's taking from the beauty, as it says in the Torah, that the beauty of Greece, the beauty of Yepet, has to reside in the tents of Shem. We have to be able to rectify it, to take it. The beauty also includes Chokhmah Bagoim Ta'amin, whatever points, sparks of truth. So one thing that the Rambam, that Maimonides already takes from Greek philosophy, from Aristotle and others, is the concept, which is a very important concept in the Torah, which is called Koach HaMinyah Bilti Mitnoea, which is called the unmoved mover. Even Aristotle believed in some form of God, and he called God the unmoved mover. And that concept, what does it mean, the unmoved mover? It's the cause, the ultimate cause of everything. In Hebrew, the term is Sibat Kol HaSibot, the cause of all causes, which is the ultimate I. As the grammarians say, that the word I in Hebrew comes from the word ina, which means the cause. That the ultimate I, which is Ani Hashem, I am God, is, this is Hebrew, and this is the Torah before Aristotle. And the meaning of that word, I am God, means I am the cause of all causes. And for Aristotle, to be a cause means to move. Causation and change in time and motion are all the same. Motion, change, time, movement, to move, are all the same. So God is the cause of all causes. He got that right, more or less. And the Rambam picked it up from him, but once more, it's from eternity. And he is the mover of all moves, but he doesn't move himself. It's called the unmoved mover. Once more, in the Torah, that's called Koach HaMinyah Bilti Mitnoea. A person who is absolutely true becomes one. According to Reb Nachman, he calls it Mechuyav HaMetziut. If you're true to yourself, all the types of truth that we talked about last time, true to yourselves, true to people, true to God. If you're true, a true person, you connect to this concept of the unmoved mover. And then you also do not move. You stand. What does that mean? If you're the unmoved mover stands, you're always standing. You're always erect. But you have the power to move everything. Where does that appear in the Torah? That's called the power of the mezuzah. The mezuzah on the door comes from the word to make things move, but it's the one and only mitzvah on the Torah we say likboa, that it's fixed. It doesn't move, but it makes everything move. That's why it's a power that brings down from God protection when you enter the house and when you exit the house. So once more, truth brings you to a level of the unmoved mover, and thereby you also have the power to either move things or not to move things. So whether the sun moves or it doesn't move, that's all up to you. Because you are right now the unmoved mover. All right? This we said a lot in a few breaths, and just this one concept. The next class will be actually the first night, I believe, of Hanukkah, but it might not be here in this place because the time will not allow for us to make it here. But this topic itself, just by itself, is the most appropriate topic for Hanukkah's Be'ez. As we said before, it's a total rectification or clarification of Hellenism. Right, so this is now wish everybody a happy Kislev, happy month of Geulah, of redemption, and of Hanukkah, with the Baal Shem Tov's favorite holiday. L'chaim, l'chaim. Okay, so now we can have 3 questions.
Okay, before the questions, I have to make the announcements again because a lot of people came in late. I'm going to try to do it very shortly. But the first one is what the Rav just said is most likely, almost for sure, that there will not be a class for next month because the first night of Hanukkah falls on the first Sunday of December, and the 8th day of Hanukkah falls out on the second Sunday. So we can't push it off to the next time. But there will be a live broadcast. There'll be a live broadcast from some secret place. Is some stronghold, some fastness. We're going to find a castle somewhere and have a live broadcast. Okay, update for those who happen to be listening from Barcelona. It is, but everyone here also, because it's going to be live streamed. It will be in English. It's at 4:30 in the afternoon, Barcelona time. So I think it's an hour or two difference. Everyone check it out. But it's apparently going to be for 4 hours. So it'll be live streamed for 4 hours starting at 4:30 Barcelona time. In addition, right, people are already planning their tickets. 2 new CDs, Yud Gimel Nigunei Rachamim. They're available here and on the website. And Bokeh Cholonei Rakia, a second one, is available. We're also making the announcement again for Yud Tet B'Kislev, which is happening on actually Yud Zayin B'Kislev, a Sunday night at Binyanei Ummah. The men's is at 8:15, and the women's is on that Wednesday. Just check in with the website, with the Galinai website, or the WhatsApp, or Facebook, to get all of the details. And also, it's very fitting that the Rav spoke about the importance of supporting Torah, Tomchei Tamimim, because before the Rav came, you just came in when we said it, that this event needs support. I mean, Galinai in general needs support, but in the immediate, this event needs a lot of support. So those who just talk to any of the Galinai staff here, but anyone who contributes 770 shekel for an individual will be invited to a special Malava Malka with the Rav, and for a couple, it's 1,260. Is that right? Or is it? That's the. 1,026. Excuse me, 1,026 shekels for a zug. You'll be invited. But as I said, anyone listening from abroad, and if you can't make it to the Malava Malka, you can still contribute. I think I made all the announcements now, and I'm reminding people here that we're not taking questions, but after Ma'ariv, as the Rav walks downstairs to his car and stands outside in the nice, cool Yerushalayim air, if you can manage to ask your question, you're welcome to, or send it on the website. All right. And that was a very, very important point, is the Rav is making an appeal not to send only your questions, but also your chidushim, especially based on the shiurim.
Say what the word means.
Innovative, creative, original thoughts. So when you hear the shiurim and you have these moments of clarity sparking your mind, send them into the Rav, because obviously from this class you see how much the Rav enjoyed getting those original thoughts. Okay, so our first...
Hopes that everybody else also enjoys.
And what? We hope everyone else enjoyed it. I thought this was a phenomenal class. Okay, this question is from Paula Baruch in Hamilton. In the statement of mourners, Baruch Dayan HaEmet, why does real truth need judgment? Baruch Dayan HaEmet. So what is the significance of making that statement, Emet,
okay, that's
when hearing about someone passing away?
So we said that doing kindness with a person that's passed away is called Chesed Shalem, and it's called kindness of truth, true kindness. We said you don't expect any reward for it. But the very state of leaving this world, first of all, is entering the world of emes. You're leaving a world of deceit and you're entering a world of truth, that we spoke about right now. But even a deeper meaning of emes is that we believe in the resurrection. As we said before, there's something which is amid, which is standing, which possesses duration and resistance, will be around, will be here until the resurrection. And if it's here until the resurrection, it will then be here forever. There's something about the opposite of life, which for us brings out our faith in eternal life, and that God will bring the dead back to life. And actually that's alluded to in the very word emes itself. One of the secrets of the word emes is Aleph Mechayemet. The word emes reads Aleph, the letter Aleph, which refers to God, Aleph Hosho Olam, and the second two letters of emet are met, are dead. A dead person, a corpse. So what does emet mean? It means Aleph, that the Aleph, Aleph Hosho Olam, gives life, resurrects the dead. And that is the reason that we said before that Elijah is called truth. Why is Elijah called truth? Because he brought back a child from death. He resurrected a child. And when he resurrected a child, the mother said, now I know that the word of God in your mouth is truth. And who was that child? That child was the prophet Jonah. And the prophet Jonah, it says that the name of his father is Amittai, which means truth. And the sages say that's not his biological father. It's Elijah, who brought him back to life. So emes itself is the belief and the power to bring back to life. So it's not only the power to make the sun stand still, it's the power to revive the dead.
Okay, the next one is from Hannah in Brooklyn, that I think this is more a kind of like an original thought than a question, but it seems very apropos because the Rav spoke about in the aspect of Yesod, the little that contains all, and the connection with stopping time and quality time. So the question, or it's more of a reflection, is the small that contains all is a nekuda inside the first letter of the Torah, the letter bet. It seems like all creation is included in this nekuda.
Okay, so that's a pure thought. It's a good thought. That nekuda in the Zohar is called nekuda be'ichala. It's a point within a chamber. Because the word bet means house or chamber. It's called a point within a chamber, which alludes to the verse, you shall make for me a sanctuary and I will dwell within you. So it's actually a divine point of revelation of the divine presence, which dwells in the temple, and everyone's home is a small temple, and everyone's heart is a small temple. And that point within the temple is called the Ru'uta de Liba, the innermost will of the heart, which is above the mind, which is intended to control the mind. The mind is controlled by the point within the heart. It's called Ru'uta de Liba.
Okay, this is our last question from Mayor Gurion from Mexico. And he's asking, what is the difference between the second nature of someone who's born Jewish and the second nature of someone not born Jewish who becomes a Ger Tzedek, who goes through conversion? And, we'll leave that.
Okay, that's a great question. And it says that a true Baal Tshuva, even though he's born Jewish, it's like he's a convert. The very first convert is Abraham, of course. He's called Rosh Kol HaGerim. So our first forefather that we have to exemplify in our lives, like we said before, Ma'aseh Avot Siman HaBanim, the workings of the fathers are the sign for the children. The first signpost that we have in our life is to emulate Abraham. What does it mean to emulate Abraham? To feel such a total existential metamorphosis in coming to God just as a convert. It means that a convert, you can ask the question, why isn't everybody yet Jewish around the world? The reason is that a convert is an example of the strength of soul that a Jew has to look at and try to emulate. He has to try to emulate that tremendous strength to totally change one's identity. Every one of us should try to strive to reach that level. And that's the ultimate tshuva. So it means that the convert for the Jew is like a parable to emulate. But everyone has a place. It's that there are 4 legs to the chariot, to the divine chariot. 3 of which are in the Jewish people, and the 4th leg, which completes the chariot, are the righteous converts. So we can't have a total, what's called, secret of the chariot without all of the righteous converts. And then we all join together. Those are the 4 legs. The Kohen, in the Jewish people, is called the priest, and the Levite, and the Yisrael, and then the Ger Tzedek, which also correspond, of course, to the 4 letters of Hashem's name. And from the final letter, the Hey, is called Or Chozer. What does it mean? Light shines up, returning light. That from the convert at the bottom, the light goes up to teach all of the higher levels, which are the born Jews, the strength, the power of conversion. That the power of metamorphosis comes from below. The light comes from above. One of the readings of that phrase that we said before, send your light and truth, that light descends and truth ascends, just like we said before, that chesed ve'emet, kindness and truth, equal chatan be'kala, groom and bride. Groom is called direct light that descends, and bride is returning light that ascends. Okay.
Okay, we'll end with a blessing that the Rav just said, Shalach orcha ve'amitecha. And at the end of this week is Rosh Chodesh Kislev, the month of light. And so our prayer should be that in this month, I was just thinking as you said that we light from below. That's because it's the emet, which draws down the or from above. So hopefully we'll all do our part, and Bezrat Hashem, the 4 letters of the dreidel, our Gematria Mashiach, and we should draw down the light of Mashiach in this month.
Amen.